Hello everyone, it's Shannon here, and I'm so excited to be joining the May Showers of Joy video hop. This was created by Erica. There's going to be lots of giveaways, so be sure to comment on all the videos along the hop. Today I'll be creating this butterfly card featuring several stamps and dies from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm going to start with the Butterfly Garden stamp set from Pink Fresh Studio. This stamp set has several sentiments as well as this large image with butterflies, flowers, and leaves. I've grabbed that large stamp image and I'm going to stamp it onto some white cardstock in a quick drying black ink. Really any color ink would work for this because I will eventually stamp that image again later. So I left that stamp in my MISTI, and now we're ready to do some ink blending with the coordinating stencil set. So I'm going to start with the first stencil from the Butterfly Garden stencil set, lined it up with my stamped image, and I'm going to ink blend all the leaves in 3 shades of greens. These are all Pink Fresh Studio inks. I'm going to start with my lightest shade, which is Fresh Pear, and I'm going to ink blend the upper third of all of my leaves with this light green color. I am using one of the Pink Fresh Studio's new small ink blending brushes, which is helpful to kind of be more precise with that color. I've now moved on to key lime for the lower 2/3 of these kind of sprig of leaves. Once I finish with that, we'll move on to our darkest shade of green, which is Evergreen, and ink blend the bottom third of each sprig of leaves with that dark green color. There are also a couple openings for the butterflies here, and again, because I'm using those smaller blending brushes, I am able to avoid those openings for the butterflies. And for those openings, I'm just going to use a beautiful yellow. This is Sunshine, kind of using a yellow and orange palette because I know Erica loves yellow. Now that I've finished with stencil 1, we're going to move on to stencil 2, and I'm going to ink blend all the flowers here with that yellow again, that Sunshine yellow. This stencil has not only openings for the flowers, but as some additional openings for the butterflies. Moving on to Marigold, which is kind of a darker yellow, and just going to add a little gradation to the flowers, kind of mainly at the base of the flower where the flower meets the stem, or at the center of the flower. Just kind of depends on how that flower is positioned. After we ink blend that second little gradation on the flowers, we're going to move on to those butterflies. For this layer of the butterflies, I'm simply going to ink blend them all with Clementine and just kind of keep it kind of flat, not really trying to do any gradations here. Once I finish up with this little butterfly, we'll move on to our next stencil, which is stencil number 3. There's only 4 in this set, so we're almost done here. This stencil is mainly for the detail layer on the leaves. I'm going to simply ink blend all the openings for the leaves in this Evergreen color. This was our darkest green that we used earlier. I'm going to be more heavy-handedly this time, especially on that lower third where we ink blended that Evergreen previously, just so we have enough contrast there as well. Now there's a little section of the butterfly here, and I decided to ink blend that with Marigold, and once I finish with that, we are actually finished with this third stencil. So remove that, and now we'll move on to stencil number 4, our last stencil. I'll line it up, use a couple pieces of tape to hold it in place, and we're going to start with Clementine here and ink blend this detail layer on all the flowers. And once I finish ink blending this detail layer for the flowers, we're ready for the butterflies. Real quick though, I have this little lower half here on this butterfly that I want to ink blend in Marigold, our dark yellow. And then for the remaining openings in the butterflies, I'm going to ink blend them all in this dark orange, which is Persimmon. And after we finish that, we are all done with our coloring. I'll hold it up to the camera so you get a good look. I love the way this turned out. Really love that color palette. Now I'm going to pop my panel back into my MISTI. Again, I did not move my stamp, so it should line up perfectly. And I just inked it up in detail black and then stamped it. And this will just crisp up all those lines, make them dark and bold. I love doing that because sometimes after you ink blend with the stencils, you can kind of soften your edge. So if you can stamp it again, it really does really bring it together. So I went ahead and die cut an A2 panel of some off-white cardstock or cream cardstock with the Butterfly Garden die. Then I'm going to take that panel and line it up with my stamped butterfly, stamped in color butterflies that I did earlier, and then traced around the edges so I know where to cut. So now that panel, that stamped panel, matches the die cut panel. Then I'm going to line the two up, then use a piece of tape just to kind of hold them temporarily together, and then add some liquid glue to the backside of the white panel, just the white panel, and then I will adhere it down to the front of an A2 top folding white card base. This is just to make sure, this is how I'm going to make sure that that stamp panel is in the right position on that card front, and then we'll move on to adding foam adhesive to the backside of our cream panel. I've already gone ahead and added 1/8 inch strips to the backside, and not only along the edges but also in the interior of this panel as well, so it has plenty of support. Now that I've removed the backing, I'm just going to line this up with our card front and our stamped image and then place it on top, and that adds some nice dimension. Now we're going to move on to our sentiment. I have the Butterfly Garden stamp set, and I'm going to create my own sentiment here, or kind of stamp these two sentiments together, but I want to stamp them at the same time, and they're just a little bit too bulky to get them as close together as I'd like, so I am using my scissors to kind of trim off some of that excess photopolymer, and once I've removed that, now I can kind of get those two sentiments nice and close together. If you are concerned at all about cutting your stamps, you could of course just stamp each one of these sentiments one at a time, and that way you can get them nice and close that way as well. I'm going to ink them up in detail black, stamp them onto some white cardstock, and then I will fussy cut these sentiments out. But because they are close together, if you don't want to fussy cut this out, you could of course just cut this into a strip as well. That would work just as nicely. I went ahead and added some foam adhesive to the back side of my sentiment, and now I'm just going to remove the backing and we're going to place it on our card front. Now we're almost done with this card. The last thing I'd like to do is add a little bit of bling. I have some glitter drops from Pink Fresh Studio. These are butterscotch, so kind of more of a orangey color. I've positioned them around my card front here, nestled them a little bit in between some of the flowers and butterflies as well. Then I used Nuvo crystal drops to adhere those gems in place, and here is the finished card. I really love the way it turned out. I love this palette. It's so warm and summery, and the little bit of bling and dimension from the foam adhesive really just adds to this kind of overall clean and simple design. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below and in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.